we're going to go over something today that is kind of highly contested or argued online forums, and it's mainly on online forums. It's always very fascinating. We're going to talk about heat crossovers, and what really brought this to light is my own heat crossover issue. Way back when, engineers figured out that putting a little bit of heat underneath a stock intake manifold warms it up enough that it helps make the atomization a little more robust. It also opens the choke faster, and it will improve the running of a stock car. You know, this is their design when you're running a stock production car, to have it be able to run in every type of condition, which is including, you know, sub-freezing temperatures where form ice, because of the motion of the air getting accelerated, it actually will drop it, and actually you will have frost on there. And part of the heating of the intake manifold is to kind of also work to stop that from happening. Now, in high performance cars, this is where when you're going away from stock, you can't think in stock terms anymore, because you're now changing the dynamics of your engine. You're making it more like a race car engine, so to speak, you know, in looser terms, but you're squeezing more performance than the base factory setup. Because most setups, even the highest performing engines, the base setups for a street car were very much on the mild side, because that's the way they were, to make sure that they would have the best fuel economy, even though it wasn't, way back when, wasn't calculated, but, you know, so you don't just say, oh, this thing's just a gas hog, but also to get the most performance out of it, because usually that means higher efficiencies. But once you start going and not caring about the highest efficiency for fuel usage, and you're just looking for absolute power, your crossover is going to be something that's going to have to go away. Now, they sell gaskets like this one from Felpro. I bought it. It's not given to me. I bought this. That have the centers blocked off, and the gasket itself supposed to block off the heat passage. Well, I'm going to show a picture here. I used Mr. Gasket, and nothing against Mr. Gasket. But here's pictures of the intake manifold. Right after I took it apart, I didn't cut those. They literally burnt straight through. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And one of the reasons is that I have 10.5 to 1 compression in this engine, which makes more heat. I live in Florida. It gets above 90 degrees here easily, and I run air conditioning, adding more heat. And also I drive it kind of hard. So these things will create a lot of heat in the head, and that crossover is actually attached to the exhaust port. What really controls it, because it doesn't do it all the time. What you have is this little valve on the bottom of the exhaust manifold. Every manufacturer that had a carbureted car had this. They were just different ways. Like, I know that Chevys were actually modular and you can change them out. Chrysler, they're cast in and they cast through, and it uses this spring here to control it staying open or closed. And there's usually another spring here that keeps it from rattling. That's all that does. So the natural state of this thing, especially now it's 70-something degrees out, is open. Now when it's very cold out, that thing, it contracts and it closes it. What can happen though is that these things can get frozen shut like this, which means you would have a blockage in your exhaust, because not much gets around that if you look at it. A lot of people that, you know, don't care about any type of stock appearance, they cut this out and then they weld, or they put a pipe plug in here to stop it from actually heating the intake manifold. This is the other part of the operation for manifold heat works. It's very simple. So with that, when you make more power when you have more compression, when there's more squeeze, there's more heat generated. It's just the way, it's a byproduct of the combustion process. So I'm going to show you what happens on a high performance car when that blows out and you don't get rid of it. This is on here is Eastwood. This is the Eastwood 600 degree paint. Okay, as you see on every other surface that was not hot, it held up pretty good. It's like a little thing here, but that may have been for me. But honestly, on the surfaces, on the bolts, it actually held up fairly well until we got to where the crossovers were. It not only discolored it, it baked it off like a flamethrower on both sides. And what happened is that driving, I was driving back, it was 90 degrees outside, I had air conditioning on. The car actually was vapor locking, and that is when fuel gets vaporized, not atomized, which is what you want, vaporized. And because it got vaporized, it doesn't go through the jets, and it doesn't go into the engine, and you basically have a dead lean situation where there's no gasoline going into the cylinders. There's nothing. There's just air, and you lose all your power. Now, I'm going to show over here, on this is Chrysler LA. Alright, so that is aluminum. I have plate aluminum here, and what I've done is this up on top, that U shape, that's just like a little vent. That really doesn't have any heat per se, and actually is above the intake manifold on this car, because these are stock heads, and this is how it's up. So this is just a thin piece of aluminum. I have a sheet of it, and what I've done is I've worked it so it just kind of sits there. When I put the gasket on, the gasket line is here, so there's going to be a seal anyway below it, and it's going to crush into it. People used to use soda cans, they use whatever pieces of thin steel to block that off, because that's where I am now at this point. And it won't hurt anything, because I do use a choke, but I have an electric hookup on it. Chrysler had a setup for just such an occasion where they used a little relay that took power when the car was running, and it's from the field wire, and it just takes that 12 volts and it converts it, and then it heats the little thing and makes it go, makes it open up. I'll even show. It's a Chrysler. Even on a stock one, they had a setup for the thermoquad where it has a little wire on it and it has a little relay, and what that does is that it heats up and it opens the choke, even if that is not hot, because the thermoquad needs a lot of choke to start. There's just so much CFM that, in my experience, especially when you start tuning them, they really need to be choked to run right, to start right. But you don't want it to stay choked, so that's why you use that. So yeah, this is going back together soon, but I had to repaint the intake manifold, wire wheel it, but yeah, the symptoms are really horrific, and you'll know it when you're driving, because you'll drive when it's cold, it'll run just absolutely like an animal, but as soon as it got hot, I'm not talking the thermostat is open. I'm talking, you're driving for a while and it's 90 degrees outside and the engine is hot. You'll try to accelerate and there'll be nothing. And that's because the fuel is basically boiling. And remember, modern fuel, it vaporizes at like 150, I think it's like 150 degrees now, which is really low. I put a infrared thermometer on my intake manifold right after I turned the car off. Right after I turned the car off. Should have done it when I was running, but whatever, it doesn't matter. It was 260 degrees by the carburetor. The exhaust manifolds were also 260 degrees in the center. That's bad. I even burnt my hand on the air filter. Yeah, that's how hot the air filter was getting. Everything was just getting extremely hot, and that's why we're going and tearing it down and putting in metal plates and doing that. And honestly, this is something, if you have a high performance car, you really should think about doing. Even if you live up north, figure out a way of having an electric choke on there. They do sell lots of different choke kits because the performance gains are a lot, but also the drivability becomes better. Oh, and I just want to hear your comments on that, because this has been it's always interesting to see what people's thought process is on this, because it just is. And I love the comments. I read them. I try to respond to all of them. And one other thing is that see if I can get this in here. I have some new shirts. This is my my 1971 Scat Pack shirt. I cartoonized it. It's pretty cool. I have a new style hat. Just and I'm creating more stuff. I'm trying to get some fun things to wear. So, and it's all pretty high quality. It's not that expensive, and there's always deals. I had to put a little plug in there for that. But also, like, if you got something just like, subscribe, share, and if you have a cool car or something fun to drive, and I know nothing's always covered, take it out, because you'll make someone's day, maybe even your own. And I'll catch you really soon.